Our world continues to change and push us in ways we have not been challenged before. On this show, we talk about these challenges, how to be aware of them, face them, and overcome them in your life. This is David Waldas, creator of the Aligned Living System.
And I'm Nick Musica, Aligned Living Coach. Welcome to the Aligned Living System podcast.
Welcome to episode 2 of season 2 of the Aligned Living System podcast. This is David Waldas here with Nick Musica. Welcome, Nick. Good to see you, sir.
Good morning, David Waldas.
Recording again.
Season 2, episode 2. It happened so fast now.
I know. Here we go. And I think season 1 was like 108 episodes or something like that. And so
I like to think about it as only 108.
Only 108, yeah. So we're 2 in now to season 2, and as we get into season 2, we're going to be talking a lot about all the new downloads that I've gotten over the last really year. Whole bunch of more concentrated ones over the last 6 months, and in that cocooning process that I was talking about last week, and so many downloads, so much to integrate, and super excited to be back here to share it with you all. Super excited to be working on my second book now that includes this, and I'll be sharing a lot of the information here, a lot of the new stuff. And so one of the really interesting downloads, because a lot of the new stuff is about attachment style, sort of. It's really about why we have different attachment styles. And if you're not familiar with attachment styles, it's kind of everywhere, in the the psych world now and relationship world, which is like the anxious attachment where people get more nervous and more grippy, I guess, all the way to the other end of the spectrum where they are dismissive, right? And so then there's a lot in between, but basically there's reasons from our childhood why we and from our past experiences why we connect the way we do, and really it's a lot of the downloads are about this internal fullness. And what does it feel like when we feel really complete inside of ourselves and then engage with others? And when we feel really complete inside of ourselves, our nervous system tends to naturally regulate. We become much more what we call securely attached, where we're just more trusting of the situation. We're less anxious about it or less dismissive. And it's really, what we're striving for, to feel complete inside of ourselves, to feel full, to feel like we trust ourselves and we trust situations, and anything that we add on the outside of ourselves is all adding to a fullness. And so it becomes exponential. It becomes people that we engage with that we really want to grow with, and that can be at all levels of relationships and connections and situations. And so the first download that I got with this was around the analogy of looking at the how atoms work, a really simplified version of how atoms work, with really our own kind of chemistry of attachment, chemistry of relationship to self. And so it'll be a kind of an interesting exploration. It's funny, whenever I go to share this, I'm always thinking like there's going to be some science person out there, or who's going to be like, yeah, but an atom works like this, and this is simplified. Yes, it's completely simplified. Yes, this is not the exact science of how it works. It's an analogy so that our brain can give structure to the understanding of what the energetics are. And so any of the science folks out there that are ready to compare it to the deeper knowledge of an atom, very simplified. So I'll save you the time of being a keyboard warrior and getting involved in troubleshooting this. Awesome. So the first breakdown of it is how an atom is set up. So inside of an atom, if you don't remember from basic chemistry, there's the nucleus, right, which is the center of it, and then there's a shell that holds the electrons right around that, and that's kind of the core of an atom, and that decides how like what an atom is, like whether it's carbon or whether it's hydrogen, or and the makeup of that doesn't change. It just stays constant, and that is the identity, what makes the atom the atom. And then as we work our way to the outer shell, which is called the valence shell, that has basically spots for 8 electrons. What they call a full octet if they're completely filled. And most of the atoms, most of the elements on the periodic table are not full at all. They have less than 8 electrons. There's a handful, mostly known as the noble gases. We also know them as noble metals like gold or platinum. And when you think about gold and platinum, like they don't tarnish, they don't rust, right? Pretty interesting because they have a full octet. And so they don't bond in the same way with other atoms. They're already full, complete. They're noble, which I think is such a cool name for that. And so then the rest of the atoms on the periodic table, the rest of the elements, are not a full octet. And so it really drives the way that they behave. And so when they engage with other atoms, they are trying to be complete. All atoms are trying to fill that outer valence shell with 8 electrons. And so they bond with either ionic bond or covalent bonding, which are both kind of forms of, like we're looking at humans, they're kind of forms of codependence. They're saying, I'm not complete as I am. And so I need another atom or atoms to mesh together and to share electrons in our valence shell so that we can feel complete. And, I was like, this is an analogy for how we engage with the world, right? And when the valence shell is filled by bonding with somebody else, we feel complete, we feel stabilized. And we can look at like the ionic bond of table salt, which is what sodium and chloride. And so sodium, I think, has 1 valence electron. Chloride has 7. And so when they bond together, they have a really tight ionic bond because together they share the electrons and they one becomes positively charged, one becomes negatively charged, and they just cohere together and become table salt, sodium chloride. And, they become an element. I guess that would be, is it a compounded element? I forget the science name for it. But basically, they bond together, stabilize, become table salt. And we see a lot of relationships like that. And then there's other covalent bonds, other bonds called covalent bonds, where maybe one has 5 valence, or one atom has 5 valence electrons, another one has say 3, and so then they share and overlap and combined, and they're always pulling at each other, trying to have a full octet, but they're never really complete because they're sharing and trying to pull the electrons from each other. And so, I thought it was such an interesting analogy of like, so how do we become a full octet? How do we become a noble element inside of ourselves? And what happens when we're not? And I think we can all see it because there are all needs that were not met in our childhood, whether they were really not met or whether they're perceived, or trauma that we've had or relationships we've had that have made us feel incomplete, experiences we've had that make us all feel incomplete. And so this new work, all the original Line Living work was about creating this space, right? Where we go, okay, I'm in here. This is me. I'm aligned with my divine blueprint. The world's out there. I know how to create the separation, create this quiet space inside myself. And all these new downloads are like, well, how do we feel full and complete inside of that space that we've been creating? And it adds a whole new element to what aligned living is. And so if you've done any of the original work with me or any, you really got to check out this new stuff because it's pretty fantastic what happens when we have all this space inside of us. And so welcome, Nick. How are you? It's with all this new information, I feel like I'm doing these long monologues to get us into the container.
It's great. So I want to make sure I was tracking you right.
Yeah, for sure.
So we have completeness. The what would you call it? The what was
full
it called?
octet.
Octet.
Yeah,
yes, okay.
Meaning
So
8 electrons in the outer
Yep.
in the outer valence shell.
And so we're
some are
full. We have
born that way.
We have
Some are
everything
born
we need.
noble. Like some are born noble, like the noble gases like argon is one of them. And then there's a few noble metals like gold and platinum. Silver's not a noble metal. You notice how it tarnishes, right? It's different things adhere to it. Whereas gold and platinum, things don't adhere to it because it's already full.
All right. So ideally, more like gold, more like platinum is the operating system.
Yeah, which is kind of fun, right? Like, why is there such a draw to gold and platinum? Um,
Yeah. Yeah. And then we
it's a real.
have the octet less. I was like, what's going to be the noun?
Uh,
Well,
Atoms that are not full octets,
great,
that are not
perfect.
noble, that are
Yep. So and then they're available to other things to fill the space in ways that may or may not be a match. But if they fill the space, that feels good, but it may not be the best thing.
yeah, and there's different levels of stabilization, right? Like, and some of like water, for example, H2O, right? And so there's actually three. In order for it to stabilize, it needs three different atoms to come together to stabilize, and then it has this feeling of this full octet, but it's also only so stable. You
Yeah.
know, and so this idea of, if we're here and we want to feel solid in of ourselves, and so much of the work is about sovereignty, right? And and we love to connect with others, and we love to, it's such an interesting thing in the spiritual communities. We talk about unity consciousness, right? And what's funny to me is the third dimension's duality, right? And so there isn't unity consciousness in a duality, a consciousness of with duality rules. And so we can go into these higher frequencies, but we're still not in unity. But we can create feelings of unity, and codependence creates that feeling. Like you know, when we're making table salt with somebody, right? It feels like a completeness. It feels like oneness, but it's really some form of trauma bonding. It's some form of saying, I didn't get something that I needed. You didn't get something that I needed. When we come together, we both give that to each other, and now we're dependent on it. So don't move. Otherwise, I'm destabilized. And I need you to continue to operate the way I need you to operate, or else I'm thrown off. And you need me to continue to operate the way that I've agreed to operate, or you're thrown off. And now we're shrinking um and pulling away, and you know we're pulling from each other and giving to each other, and it can be beautiful, and it can also be very destructive if we don't already have that full noble completeness inside of us, because then it's additive. If it's not, then it's like a desperate clinging to, and I'm like, we're all guilty of this, right? So I'm not saying, you become noble and that's it, and then it's beautiful, and you don't have needs, and you're just complete and unto yourself. It's not that simple. It's saying that when we have the capacity to be noble, then we have the capacity to bond with people at a much higher level without that same kind of extracting from each other and compromising. And we often see it in relationships where people have to dim themselves down in order to make the relationship work. And when we're both noble, we really enjoy the expansion of each other because it's not a threat. When one person expands, it doesn't take away from what the other needs, it actually adds to it, because we're not stabilizing off of each other's foundations. We're stabilizing off of ourselves and then expanding together. And that can be true
So
with works. It can be true with collaborating at any level.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. So it sounds like there's a little bit of a dance. There's a little bit of an evolution. There's a little bit of awareness, maybe more than a little bit, as we move through these pieces of this metaphor. Is that
yeah,
fair to say?
and what's actually, it's a metaphor for something that is real inside of us, right? Like when
Yeah,
we
yeah,
have that full octet, what does that feel like when we become noble? And it's really working. All the new downloads too are connected with working with our masculine or structural aspects, and our feminine or our flowing, loving, nurturing aspects that are also offer us grace and offer the world grace. And we'll talk more about that at another time. But when those aspects of us are activated and our inner child is activated, so there's really kind of three elements. So it's a lot more like water, which is, three elements of hydrogen and oxygen all coming together. When those three aspects of ourself are coming together and activated, we have this bond inside of ourselves that becomes then like a noble bond that we bring to the world. And so we're really working, the codependency becomes inside of us with the different aspects of ourselves, instead of becoming codependent outside of ourselves with work, relationships, friendships, all of these different things. And so this is where it starts to get a little bit trickier, is going like, well, in order for us to feel noble as we engage with the world, there's these different elements of us that we have to bond together. And, like, what do we call a codependent bond when it's us bonding with us, right? Because these different aspects of us are codependent on each other. And we live in a world that's very masculine, right? And so we tend to lead with our masculine energy, men and women. And because of the structure that's needed, the way to navigate it. And sometimes we go, oh, it's so nice, like, to be in this safe environment where I can finally, my feminine energy can come out. And there's a lot of talk about that. Like, when a man holds his space for the woman gets to be feminine. She doesn't have to be masculine anymore. And she can finally feel safe. And there's truth to all of that for sure. But when we hold both of those present in us at the same time, our masculine energy and our feminine energy, and let them communicate and connect, that's really when we start to fill into that fullness. And so it's this interesting codependent dance of these inner parts of us that then show up to the outer world as a noble, full octet, completed aspect of ourself, or really, what I call our master container, our sense of our whole self.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's a little bit tricky to wrap our head around what all of this is.
Is codependent? I'm wondering if there's a different word. If they're all the pieces, the right pieces of the puzzle. I don't know if that's the right way to think about it. Is codependent the right word to think about? Because codependent is different.
Yeah. So, because when we think of codependent on the outside, we say, in order for these two people to feel whole, they have to be, linked together, and they're dependent on each other that way. And so, what we're really saying is codependence inside of ourselves is actually very healthy for our masculine and feminine energy to be in communication with each other and to be in contact and be linked like that. That codependence and our inner child, the part of us that didn't get its needs met as a kid, that kind of codependence is super healthy, because it creates a fullness in us, and then we present to the world as our master container in a noble way, in a full octet.
So there's a context and there's a distinction piece to that.
Yeah, so it's kind of like an internal ionic bond that then presents to the world as a noble element.
Yeah. Okay, that's helpful.
Yeah, and it's funny. Like, I've been working with this now for about 5-6 months, and so it's like it's so ingrained in me. So like, the concept, I want to make sure it lands for people, because it is a new concept to say, yeah, well, like, we're always taught that we're not supposed to be codependent. That we're supposed to really be our be able to partner with people, but not be codependent in it. That creates all kinds of problems. And so to say that this internal codependence is actually the answer to that, I can see how it could be a little confusing for people to wrap their head around.
Yeah. I was getting hung up on the verbiage.
Yeah, and interestingly too, it is an experience, right? When we do the work, and it's become an important part of the 12-week program. We're doing, a primary core part of the 12-week program, because, as I said before, it was okay. Here's our sovereignty. There's the outer world. There's the inner world, and this is us, and that's great. But then, what do we do with this space inside of us? How do we be us? And part of it's just the experience of that, but we also have to activate all of us in there, and create this codependent experience of the different aspects of ourselves, so that they're integrated, and then we're in a fullness. Because when we're just in our masculine energy, we're not in our fullness. We may feel like we're dominating, we're taking charge, and I'm putting direction in my life, but without that feminine aspect of that nurturing and that support and the inspiration that happens for our masculine energy, and the grace is such a big part of it, that doesn't mean that we have to be perfect, that really allows us to be human and allows other people to be human. And usually when we move into our masculine energy, we lose grace for ourselves and others. And when we maintain both the masculine and feminine at the same time, we're able to maintain that grace for ourselves and others. And it's a big game changer. And I mean, just that feeling of completeness inside of ourselves, it makes us feel so like our nervous system just automatically regulates. and we become much more settled into ourselves.
So what are some of those signals of being uh, over leveraging the masculine and under leveraging the feminine, being out of balance of those two elements?
Yeah, and we end up being moving really into more toxic versions of them quite often. And so I look at this as 4 quadrants. So there's a toxic overused of the masculine and feminine, and then there's a toxic collapsed masculine and feminine. And so the toxic overused masculine is like the bully, the dominant one, the one that has to be the biggest, loudest, the one that pushes everybody around. And we all may have had times where we find an element of that coming up for us. And we end up naming those parts of us so that we know when we're starting to move into that part that's just dominating, and it has no grace. And the interesting thing about that is that the masculine overuse kind of needs an audience, because it needs people to look up to it and see it as important, see it as powerful, because it's an extremely codependent relationship. When you see a bully or somebody, like, they love to have an audience, that's seeing how incredible they are and how
Yeah.
powerful they are and how dominating they are. The toxic overused feminine on the other side is quite different. That it's like the scorched earth. It's when the toxic feminine overuse gets activated in somebody, they don't need an audience. In fact, quite often what they need is the person or situation to just not exist. Right? And so that's why that scorched earth comes in. Like, they don't need somebody to look at them and go, wow, look how powerful you are. They need them to go away or not be there so that they can feel that dominant, powerful energy. And men and women both have the ability to go into toxic feminine overuse and toxic masculine overuse. And so this isn't about, this is a woman's trait, this is a man's trait. But it's a really interesting distinction between, the toxic feminine. It's kind of like the leader of the mean girls. It's like, she doesn't really care what other people think or how it affects them. She wants things the way she wants them, and that's for everybody else to deal with. And if that's too much for you, then you need to go away, um, because I don't need you to sit here and be my audience. I need you to not be in my way. And was there something you wanted to?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It sounds like the result is different, and the want for when those two things get expressed, one wants an audience, one wants the problem to go away, and so therefore at the end of that, it's different.
It creates
The
different
toxic-
outcomes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, different outcomes. But
Yeah.
but also that kernel of over leverage, the trait is the commonality.
Yeah. It's saying that I need to
It's-
dominate my surroundings, and
And
that's what the
super-
overused toxic masculine and feminine are. I have to dominate my surroundings. I just do it in different
Yeah.
ways.
And would you say that's a highly emotional state? Like when those things show up, is it highly emotional, or can it not be highly emotional?
It
How
can
would you?
be cold. It can be calculated. It can be very non-emotional, or it can be very emotional. It can be either. I mean, like, we've seen that. Like, we can look back on the experience we had, and some people's personalities where they're just like cold, like they just, like, it feels like they just don't care. They're just, this is how it is. And sometimes it's emotional, sometimes it isn't. And so I think whether it's emotionally charged or not brings a different element to it, but it's all in that same kind of category of dominating surroundings. And it's like, I'm more powerful than everybody and everything around me, and I'm saying how stuff goes. And whether it's done through a masculine way or a feminine way, it looks different, but the same intention is domination of
So the
things have to be
dominating
my
is
way.
that's
Yeah.
the shared piece there, the dominating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it makes it very different from the divine versions of the masculine and feminine, right?
Yeah. So
Um,
can we talk about those two pieces?
well, let's do the collapse ones first.
Okay.
Okay, so the other 2 quadrants then are the collapsed masculine and the collapsed feminine. The collapsed masculine is the victim. It's the one that says, why are you treating me this way? Why are you doing this? It's the one that says, people are against me, or, no matter what I do, I, I lose. Like, it's the part of us that doesn't feel important and doesn't feel like it has agency. And so it's probably one of the most dangerous aspects of ourselves, because it's also what undermines us. And if you're familiar with the story of the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, I often think of Edmund was the younger brother in it, right? And so if you know the story, if he first goes into Narnia, the White Witch befriends him and tricks him into betraying his brothers and sisters and trading it in for candy and the promise that he's going to be the king. And so he doesn't feel powerful, he doesn't feel important, and so he undermines and sells everybody else out, thinking that's the only way he's going to gain power. So he gains power through being a victim. He gains power through backstabbing. He gains power through taking us down, the rest of us. And so he's one of the most dangerous internal aspects of ourselves, because he is our upper limiter. He's the one that sabotages us. And then the collapsed feminine on the other side is like the princess that doesn't think that she should have to contribute. She thinks that she should just be taken care of and everything should be given to her without any effort or responsibility on her side. And it's funny. Like, I was thinking about the difference, between the divine feminine and the collapsed feminine. Like the divine feminine may get on a plane with her carry-on, and it's heavy. And just naturally, men will look at her, or a stronger person will look at her and just go, "Oh, I want to take care of you." And the divine feminine, masculine energy, wants to take care of it. But the collapsed feminine will sit there and be like, "Okay, who's taking care of me?" And it's a very different energy, right? It's very much like, I need, okay, who's going to do this? Who's taking care of me? Because I'm not lifting this myself. And they're playing games, and they're self-importance. It was funny. I was actually thinking about this. I was flying a few months ago, and this very collapsed feminine kind of modelly looking woman. I can't remember if I was flying out of LA or not. Like she gets to where she was sitting like a couple seats over from me, and she had to put her carry-on up there, and she's like looking around like, who's going to put this up for me? And I'm sitting there, and like some guy goes to grab it for her, and she hands me, like, I'm just sitting there, she hands me her passport, her phone, and I think like some money or something, and like just puts it in my hand, and I like naturally took it. I'm like, what? And, like, she's just enlisting all the guys around her to be her assistants. Well, I'm like, why am I holding your phone and your passport in your... She was just like, oh, good. Now I have everybody involved. Everybody's taking care of me. And I was like, this is hilarious. Like, I just handed it back to her, and like, okay, yeah, I'm not engaging this. Thank you. I'm not interested in having this conversation. But it was such a funny moment because it was such a perfect version of the collapsed feminine. Now I've got 3 guys all enlisted, in supporting me, and now I can sit down in my seat, and I'm super important and super taken care of, and it required nothing on my behalf. And so collapsed feminine, and in contrast, your question, right? The difference between the divine versions, like the divine masculine, divine feminine, have their full power, right? The masculine part of it is the part of us that is our structure. It's a part of us that makes a difference in the world. It's a part of us that goes out and creates things, that holds a space, that does the practical stuff. It's why people lead with their masculine energy in this world. It's required to hold our structure, to hold our boundaries, to hold our sense of self. And the feminine, the divine feminine, is the part of us that's loving and nurturing, and brings all of our, like, there's such a joy element to it, such an element of beauty and love and grace. I think is such a huge part of the divine feminine as well, because she allows us to be human, and she allows people around us to be human. And that forgiveness, that sense of like, oh, it's okay for me to not be perfect. If that divine feminine's not activated, we don't get to not be perfect. And we beat ourselves up. And so these elements, when they dance together, and they meet, like, because it's really interesting. We usually are in one or the other, and we trade them out. And so the aligned living work now is about connecting them, letting them actually merge, and then bringing in our inner child too, and letting them take care of that part of us, let it feel safe, let it have all the things that the needs it didn't get met as a child. And then we know ourselves as this master container that is the bonding of those aspects of ourselves, and we show up as a noble element in the world. And so
And
that's overview. Yeah. Go ahead.
You mentioned you're currently writing a book at the top of
Mhm.
the episode. This
Yeah.
is all of this is in the book, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been
Yeah.
so fun to write and so fun to work with
Yeah.
clients because now it's kind of at the core of the 12-week program. Like I said before, it was all about how do we find our sovereignty and our clarity and our alignment. But then what do we do with that inner space? And this is really all the new stuff is about how to make the inner space this really full, solid, complete home, safe, powerful, full of grace, full of nurturing, full of love, full of strength, full of power. All these aspects that we think of as, almost like in contradiction to themselves. But
Mm.
when the masculine, divine feminine are both activated and solid, and we put all these elements into place, it's um, I don't know. I mean, I like it's alive in me. I just feel so different too. And so people that can see energy can see it, I think. And if I turn off my divine feminine and just go into my masculine, which I'm doing right now, there's a very different, if you can see energy and experience it, there's a very different sense of me. And I may feel very directed. I may feel very in charge. I may feel very much like I know where I'm going, but there's not a wholeness. There's not a fullness. There's no nurturing. There's no compassion. There's no grace. It's just directive and say, oh, I could follow that guy. He sounds like he knows what he's doing. I like that powerful feeling. But the moment that we activate the feminine with it and let them connect, all of a sudden now there's a wholeness, there's a fullness that I think is a lot easier to connect with, is a lot easier to trust. And on the opposite side, if I turn off my masculine and just go into my feminine energy, it's like, it's funny, it makes me smile every time, but I lose my shape, I lose my direction. May feel very soothing and nurturing and loving and all of that, but there's no shape to me. And so how do you follow that other than like, oh, let's just kind of snuggle into this space. That feels great. Where are we going? I don't think we're going anywhere because it just feels good to be here. Right. And so when I activate both of them again, all of a sudden now there's a different flow to me. There's a different experience of me. And so, if you're sensitive to energy, if you're aware of it, hopefully that demonstration gives you a sense of like, oh, okay, well, I can see and feel the difference in how you're showing up, whether you're watching this on YouTube in the video or whether you're just listening to the audio. Hopefully you got a sense of the difference in me when I'm, in a full valence shell in that noble element as my master container, or whether I'm in, some portion of myself. And so that always cracks you up, huh, Nick? How are you doing?
I think it's funny.
Yeah.
I
Do you
think
get
it's
a
funny
sense of
too.
that change,
Oh
that
yeah,
shift in?
that's why I think it's funny. I mean, when you first, well, what was the first one? It was all masculine, no feminine.
Oh, masculine. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like this uh this
Kind of a dick.
metal egg. It was just like a metal egg, like it's just like a hard surface with nothing on the inside.
Yeah. And then we're
And
often
then
taught that like the masculine leaders that, they show up like this, then, and they're like, okay, like here's what we're doing. You can
yeah,
follow me. I'm all
yeah,
masculine energy. I'm all direction. Like you do what I do and you're going to be great.
yeah,
Right. Like,
yeah.
and they're like, oh,
And then
it's
the
something
feminine
different.
had a feeling to it, certainly, but as you're talking, I'm like, oh, this is what people high on weed sound like. Like where we're going, we're at our destination, right? Like the only thing we need here
Yeah,
is
we're already
Doritos
there.
in a
Yeah.
video game. Like we're here. What do you mean
Right.
go someplace? We're here.
And I think a lot of people are seeking that because they're so overwhelmed by the world and they don't know how
Yeah,
to show up in it. And so when both these are activated, we get both senses at the same time. And I think
yeah,
this is what we're missing is people go, oh, okay, today I feel like I can get shit done. And then other days like, oh, I'm finally comfortable or I'm moved into my collapsed masculine or feminine or like, but
yeah,
to balance them and to activate them both, like this new work is just, it's so fun. And I mean, I feel like such a different person with this activated because I'd gotten, obviously I've been teaching this for 10 years and I've gotten really good at staying in my alignment. But there was a certain sterileness to it, a certain amount of like,
mm,
this is just this very clear, clean, precise sense of self. But where's the comfort? Where's the grace? Where's the ability to really fill out and be a full self? And
yeah. So this is more dynamic. This is more livable.
yeah, it's super comfortable,
Yeah,
right? And sovereign at the same time. Whereas the other one had such a buzz to it. It was always very, very, very activated. And this is but it's activated with grace. It's activated with a sense of internal comfort and safety that just wasn't available in the same way before.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think grace, it's such it's hard to imagine, when we think about, people often say, I'm so hard on myself, or I don't ever give myself a break. Like, when that grace is there, it's just hmm, like we don't need to be hard on ourselves in the same way. And it allows us to move through things so freely, and allows us to take bigger risks. Because a lot of the reasons we don't take risks, a lot of the reasons we don't put ourselves out there is we know we're not going to give ourselves any grace. If we screw it up or make a mistake or embarrass ourselves, like, we're devastated. But if it's
Yeah.
not devastating, then we're also less likely to make mistakes because we're not so stressed about
Yeah.
it. We're not so, it's this internal,
Yeah.
and again, so this is nervous system regulation. And
And
when our nervous
permission to
system's
try
regulated,
things, permission to try interesting things for the sake of they're interesting things.
yeah, and to express ourselves into the world and have it
Yeah.
make an impact, have ourselves be seen. Um,
Yeah. Ooh.
yeah, it's
Maybe,
super
maybe
fun
that's a
stuff. I can't.
maybe that's a different topic for
Yeah.
another day. Uh-huh.
Well, we'll keep talking about this, but like I said, if you've done the original Line Living work, you got to get back involved and check out this new stuff, because it changes everything. And
Yeah, it's cool.
hopefully you can see it and feel it in me, because I feel like a completely different person. Like, there's so much more fullness that I didn't know was missing. But it feels amazing to have it there now, and to watch clients have that same fullness. Yeah, it's just awesome, and we get to impact the world in ways that we just weren't capable of before, because it took so much of us to do it.
So a continuation of different way of being.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
So lots of opportunities to do that work. Go to the webpage of davidwaldas.com, and Nick's teaching this as well, so nickmusica.com. Um, and yeah, there's one-to-one, or there's small groups now. I'm working with groups of 3 at a time, and if you form your own group, you get a discount. And
There's options.
yeah, I'm training the coaches, and yeah, and there's actually a new option on there too, if you haven't worked with me before, to do a single one-on-one session as well, that you can find. So awesome. Great to connect with everyone. Great to be back, and y'all have a great week. We'll see y'all next week. We hope you enjoyed listening to today's podcast, and if you did, please subscribe so you can catch the next episode. If you want to learn more about the Aligned Living System and how it could support you in your life, check out davidwaldas.com.